getting appropriate answers, as well as for doing the statistical analysis also. So it helps, research design help us in all the way. So let us start with the meaning of research design. So research design is the plan and the structure of the investigation, so conceived as to obtain answers to research problem. So what does it mean that we are going we through the research design, adopting the research design, we are going to structure our investigation. Let us see again the what the definitions has been given here, that research design is a scientific plan to provide empirical evidences, a structure in which the variables has to be studied in a special model. So it means that with the help of the research design, we are going to craft our variables, and how we are going to get the result, and to make that structure on the basis of our variables also, and preparing the appropriate answer of the research problem. So there are the various kind of the researches. On the basis of that, we have to select a particular research design, and now we will proceed further. Then type of the research design specifically depends upon the non-experimental design and the experimental design. So let us see that before proceeding this directly, the types of the non-experimental and the experimental, we need to understand the some specific symbols for understanding the notions and the other things also. So first is the R. R is a randomization. Randomization, that means random selection of the units and the random assignment in the groups E and C. E is here experimental group, and C is here meaning of the control group. So you know that in experimental studies, it is a well known that we are going to give the some intervention, and on the basis of that intervention, we are going to see the effect of that intervention. And so we are generally form the group, experimental group and the control group. So random selection, we already discussed this thing in the sampling also, that randomization for making our sample representative, the random selection is required. For that, the various sampling techniques are here, and in the sample design, actually we are just ensuring that randomization should be there, and it means the unit should be selected by the random selections. And the second X means treatment or intervention. And treatment, actually we are giving to our experimental group, and to compare the treatment, there might be a more than one experimental groups, and generally, and the thing is that there is a one group also, control group, in that the treatment is generally become absent also. So X actually denote to the treatment and intervention. And the O symbol is denoting to measurement or the testing, and where O is more than 1, then O1, O2, O3, and till nth number, then how many times we are going to test and measure depend upon that. So basically the three symbols we are using in the research design to give the notions and to understand what kind of research design is: R, X and O. So we are going to use these symbols in further in our discussion. So please keep in your mind that. So first we will proceed with the non-experimental design, and non-experimental designs are the pseudo-experimental design, quasi-experimental design, survey design. It is a very familiar design that people are using that. Correlational design, contrast design, case study design. So these designs we are using as a non-experimental design. And so let us start first with the non-experimental design one by one. So pseudo experimental design, you know this word pseudo. Pseudo means actually means false, and in biological sciences we are using this word pseudo for denoting the various animals lacks, and specifically in the case of the amoeba we are using that pseudopodia. So here pseudo means false experimental design. And let us see what does it mean that pseudo experimental experimental research design is that lack random assignments and contain few data points. So it means that because it is a non-experimental design, it is a false experimental design. So the first condition that the random assignment will not be there, and we will use the few data points. On the basis of that we are going to do a study. And three types of the pseudo experimental design here. That one is a one shot case study. It means you just find out that as per the nature context of your research problem, then where the particular kind of intervention is already running, and you just went there and administer your questionnaire, and then you got the data and you will come back. This kind of study is called one shot case study. And one group pre-test post-test design, it means that you are going and without seeing any characteristics of your group, you will administer one testing before the intervention, that is pre-testing, and you will administer again the same test on the same group, and after the intervention, that is called post-test design. And in this way you are using the one group pre-test post-test design. Static group comparison means you will select two groups as per the context of your research, and will go and take the testing measure that particular trait, and will come back. So in this way, that in one shot you will include the one group, and in static comparison you will include the more than one group. And but you see Kidder is explained that these three pseudo experimental designs are the example of how not to do research. So if there are the alternatives, so you see, if there are the alternatives, not to choose the pseudo experimental design, but if you are doing research in a very hurry, and if your other alternative is not available to you, then you can use this pseudo experimental design also. The next is quasi experimental design, and quite familiar experimental design, and but it is a non-experimental design, because the experimental design is required demands the internal and the external validity of the experiment. And in quasi-experimental, uh, being a non-experimental design, we are not going to follow all those conditions that are required in the experimental design. So let us see what is the meaning is here we express here. The quasi experimental designs are research design that also ignore random assignment, because being a non-experimental, we are going to ignore, we are going to leave the random assignments of the unit for the treatment and the comparing group. Instead, the comparison between the treatment and the non-treatment conditions must always be made with non-equivalent group or with the same subjects prior to the treatment. So what is the thing that we are going to compare? Then it means both the groups we will not bother about, the researcher will not bother about whether the two groups are equivalent or not. And but in experimental condition, it is a mandatory condition, it is a compulsory that the researcher should consider this thing and should worry about it. And so a quasi-experimental design. Here you see the quasi-experimental design is a quite familiar or adopted design, because in social sciences researchers, the field research studies, sometimes it is difficult to adopt the experimental condition in actual. So to avoid all these things, we are generally using the quasi-experimental design. So let us see that how we can go with all these, the experimental quasi-experimental design. Interrupted time series design, equivalent time sample design, non-equivalent control group design, counterbalance design, separate sample pre-test post-test design. So let us take one by one all these types of the quasi experimental design and see that how we can administer, how we can craft our research. So interrupted time series design, you know that interrupted means we are going with the time series, but after the certain intervals. So this design is actually taking that, and because it is avoiding ignoring the random assignments, so we are not using that symbol R symbol here, because all the designs are non-experimental, so we are going to ignore that randomization, and we are just focusing on the testing and the intervention. So interrupted time series design, what we are going to do, and you can see that what the notion is given here: O1, O2, O3, O4, O5, and acts as a, you know, that intervention and the treatment, and O6, O7, O8, O9, and O10. So these are the our testings, then measurement we are going to follow. It is a single group design, and then what the researcher will do, researcher will administer test the once, and then it repeat after certain time, and then third and four and five, and after that the intervention will take place, and again the testing is taking place after the intervention, that is on the certain time intervals as we followed before the intervention. And after that you see the second thing is we can compare the O5 and O6 to see the immediate effect of the intervention. We can also compare the O4 and the O7 also, so it gives us the some kind of understanding that just before that pre-test, before the intervention, the sometime before, what was the actual condition of our group, and the O7 is also giving not the immediate effect, the after effect also. So in this way any set of testing we can compare to see our results, and to see the impact of the our intervention. And what is the meaning of here, the meaning is this: to control the adverse effect of the maturity or the internal validity of the experiment. Generally we are using this kind of interrupted time series design. Equivalent time sample design, you can see here we will move with the help of the notion, and the notion is given here x1, then after that O1, x0 means no experiment, no treatment, O2, and then x1 again, then O3, and x0 again no experiment, and O4 is again testing. So how the researcher will proceed? If researcher is taking this design or select this design to proceed, x1 means intervention, first we will give the intervention. O1 means we will go for the measurement or testing of to see the impact of our intervention. Then after we will give the time gap, and then time gap x0 there is a no intervention, and after that we will go again one more testing, and then we will repeat again the same intervention, and will go by O3 immediate testing after the second time our intervention. The same intervention we are going to repeat here, and then again we will give the gap, that is x0 no intervention, and after that we are going to administer the first furthermore one more testing. And it is also a single group design. We can compare, you see, O1, O2 we can compare to see the delayed effect of the x1, and we can also compare the O2 and O3 also to see the repeated effect of the intervention, whether in first intervention how much they learn, and with the delayed effect how much they learn, and after that when the intervention again repeat, then what is the impact of that. And again O4 we can compare the O4 also with other sets of the O to see that the repeat replication or repetition of the intervention, and with a delayed effect also. So in this way we can conduct or design our study, and it gives us the comparing group also. O1 O2 we can compare, O3 O4 we can compare, O1 and O4 we can compare, O2 and O3 we can compare. Any set of the testing we can compare to see the impact of the intervention. The non-equivalent control group design, you know that it is a quasi-experimental. So randomization is not there, and the groups are non-equivalent. And but the control group design, in research design, there is a one particular kind of things we need to know, that whenever we will control group design will come, this term will come, it means that the intervention is absent in that group. So come to the notion of this design, X1, oh sorry, O1 acts O2, and it is this denominated by O3 and O4, and it is a scattered line. A scattered line is showing that randomization is absent, no randomization, and no equivalent group. And you see that two group are there. One is a group that will receive the intervention, and another group is a group that will not receive any kind of intervention, that we call that control group. And it means it is not a single group design, it is a two group design. One is experimental, one is a control group. In experimental group design group, intervention is there. In control group, intervention is not there, intervention is missing. And the second, because it is a quasi experimental, so no randomization, and the groups are not equivalent. And so in one group, the first experimental group, the researcher will administer the one test as a pre-test, and after that will provide the intervention and will go for the post test. And in control group, we will go for the pre-test and we will go for the post test, but intervention is absent. So we can compare any set of the testing like the O1 O2 to see the impact of the intervention. O3 and O4, we see that in control group when the intervention is missing, what is the effect of the maturity and environment and all. And O2 and O4, we can see that what is actually difference is there if the group is receiving intervention and group is not receiving intervention, whether to prove that what is the effect of intervention actually. And counterbalance design is a very this good design, and it gives the researcher a lot of opportunity to go for this testing and to see that this what is the impact of the different kind of this experiment. So we will go by the, and we can study more than one or two groups. Earlier we have seen that the single group design, and this earlier non-equivalent control group design is a two group design. But if we want to do the study at the same time with the four group, then we can use this counterbalance design. And you see that we will design our treatment in a also in different phase also, or we can design, we can frame the different kind of treatment to see a particular effect. So group 1, group A, group B, group C, group D, four groups we have. And in that you see X1, X2, X3 and X4, these are the four sets of the treatment that we are going to give our group. And but this square management is giving us one treatment one time in each row and each column. So with the help of this design, we will able to give the every kind of treatment to every group, and but one time one treatment, and in each column in each row, means every group will receive the treatment, particular treatment at a time. And but all the treatment will be received by the every group. So let us see that X1 in group first, group A, X1 and O1. So one first intervention we will go give, and then after that we will go for the measurement or testing. Then we will repeat in second experiment and go for the again testing, and we will provide the third treatment and will go for the again testing for that, and four kind of treatment again go for the testing. In the medical line, this kind of design is generally using that like they are giving for some exercises for the controlling blood pressure, and after that they are measuring that, and some the kind of physiotherapy or some kind of treatment for controlling diabetes, and it is a second kind of this treatment, and then go for the testing. So in this way they are going for the this. And but you see that in every group, like this x1 and x2, when it will be over, when the group A will receive x1 treatment, then group will B will receive the x2, and group C will receive xc third treatment, and group D will receive the fourth treatment. So every group is receiving the same treatment and will go for the testing, followed by the testing, and to see the impact of that particular intervention or the treatment, but in a sequential manner, and this is called. And we can do, also test any kind of any set of the group we can test. We can test like you see in OA group A O1 testing with group this B O1 testing also. So we can see that which group is taking lead in this, and what is the impact in the various group. And so for every group we can this compare any set of the this testing we can compare to see the result of the interventions. And separate sample pre-test posters design means two samples, two groups are there, and in every group the intervention will be present, but they are not related with each other. And the second thing, they are pre-testing, and they will follow go through with the pre-testing and the post-testing also. So one group pre-test posters design, separate sample, compare O2 means two groups are there. No, two groups are not this in dependent and with the same. Like you see, if you are going to give any intervention in one school, and you are going to give any intervention in another school, so they are not related, but you are going to compare to see the impact. So here is a O1 x O2, so this is a one group, and O2 O3 x O4, it means it is a second group, and in both the groups same intervention we are going to follow, and the same testing we are going to follow, but we are going to compare the various group of set of testing, like O1 O2 we can compare to see the impact of the intervention, and O3 and O4 directly within the same group we are going to see the impact of the intervention. But O2 or O4 we can also compare to see, even though they are separate sample, but what is the impact, which group is more influenced with the intervention, and intervention works more in which groups. To see this impact we can compare O2 and O4 also. So in this way, these are the quasi-experimental designs, sub-designs. Then within the quasi-experimental, we can craft our research in the way that either with the separate group design, either with the counterbalance group. It depends upon that in what way we are going to give intervention, and which design is suitable for us, we can choose that. And further correlational design, in this design, the correlation between the variables is studied on the one group. And contrast design means we are going to compare among the groups in a study, and case study is designed as such a design in which individual cases is studied. So these are the non-experimental or designs then we are going to adopt to conduct our study. So now let us start with the this experimental design, as we also highlighted in our this previous slide, that experimental design demands some particular kind of situation. Then first is most prominent and mandatory condition for the experimental design is a randomization. So all the groups, all the designs should follow this randomization. So that's why the name of the subgroups, sub designs under the experimental design are also stated as the randomized. Randomized post-test only control group design, randomized matched post-test only control group design, randomized pre-test post-test control group design, randomized one-way ANOVA design, randomized blocked one-way ANOVA design, randomized factorial design. Let us see one by one what does it mean by pre-design and how the researcher can proceed with this. Randomized post-test only control group design means you know that it is not a single group design. It is the two kind of groups will be there, that one is the experimental group and second is control group. And R is denoted to the randomization because in experimental design the randomization is mandatory, and that's why to separate these two groups I put the continuous line here in between the two groups. This continuous line shows that it is randomized group. These group means random assignments, assignment of the units in both the groups is adopted. So here the R means randomization, and two groups are separated by or framed with the procedure of the randomization, random assignments of the units. X is experiment, treatment, and O1 is this post test actually. So in the name of the design is also defined that post test design, it is a post test design, so pre test is not there. So O1 is post test for the experimental group and O2 is a post test for the control group. So we can compare the O1 and O2 to see the impact of our treatment given to a in the absence of the treatment in the control group also. So see the next, randomized match post-test only control group design. This design is more and more similar to the previous one because it is the randomized post-test only control group design it also, but the only term is we are using here the matched. So what is the through the notation we can see R means randomization, and continuous line shows that the two groups are formed through the random assignment of the units, that is experimental group and the control group. X is a treatment, treatment is there in the experimental group and treatment is absent in the control group. And M means matched on the basis of the extraneous variable. Let me take the example. If you want to do the study of any teaching intervention, then what is the thing, you will take the groups, frame the group, experimental group and the control group on the basis of the random assignments, but both the groups should be matched on the basis of the extraneous. If you are just seeing that the intelligence is such a factor that will affect to your intervention, then you can control that. And control, how you can control that? You can control to make the group equated group, and for making the equated group you will match both the groups. Like first you will go for the intelligence test and you will score that, and on the scores that the same pair of the scores you will get, and you will assign one in experimental group and one another one in the control group. But the scores are not you are not getting the same pair of the scores, and you will leave those cases here. So in this way you will match, or you can also take the range also, that on the basis of that you can make the matched both the groups. So in the experimental research design the groups should be equated on the basis of that, and the to just to make that increase the enhance the internal validity, it is also very important that to control the effect of extraneous variable in at any cost. So through the matched group design we are able to do that. So that's why it is called randomized matched post test only control group design. So next is the randomized pre-test post-test control group design, and this design is mostly used by the researcher for their to conduct their experimental studies. And the notion is again for this design is R. R means randomization. Continuous line shows that the two groups are formed with the random assignments, and experiment treatment is only present in the experimental group and missing in the control group. And but here is we are going to do the first pre-test in both the group, that in experimental group it is a O1, in control group it is a O3. And then we will go work for the intervention, but we will leave our control group as it is at the time of the post test in experimental group. At the same time we will administer our post test in the control group also. Then we will compare O1 and O2 and O3 and O4, and as it is O2 and O4 also, to see that what is the impact of the intervention. And the same design we have also in the quasi experimental, but the only difference is this, the randomization. So randomized one-way ANOVA design, it means that wherever the ANOVA word ANOVA is using, that analysis of variance we are using, it means we are moving towards more than two groups. So here that's why in Notion we have this seeing that experimental group 1, experimental group 2, experimental group 3. And you see that every group is R. R means randomization. In every group, the units are assigned randomly. Then we are giving the three kind of experiments, X1, X2 and X3. So three interventions are there, and now after that there are the testing O1, O2 and O3. So these are the tests. You can see that. Let me take the one example to understand this, that the impact of various innovative teaching techniques, technology based teaching strategy, the things, impact of the technology on the this achievement of the learner. So like if you are teaching your giving the intervention with the help of the internet, and if you are taking the intervention of the impact of the cartoons net channel on the students achievement, if you want to see the impact of the video games on the achievement of the student. So these three kind of experiment treatments are there, and we will select the three groups and randomized three groups, and we will go in every group the one particular kind of treatment we will give, like through the internet only, through cartoon channel and the video game. And accordingly we will administer the our achievement test or any other things variable that you have decided, like thinking ability. So you will go by this thinking ability, and you will test that. So in this way, what will be the thing, that the three experiment you are going to conduct. And this is called the randomized one-way ANOVA design. One-way ANOVA design means we are moving in a linear way. So the thing is that let me come to the next randomized block, one way ANOVA design. So it is a enhanced model, advanced model of the previous one, that was a randomized one way ANOVA design. This is a randomized blocked one way design. Block one way design means blocking means equalized on the basis of extraneous variable. So you also have seen that in two group design we are using that matched group, and here what we are using the word blocking. But what is the difference between the matched? Why we are not using here the M? Because in blocking you see that in matching we are using the same match. Like if someone is having the intelligence level 120, so we will see that this figure should come in the pairing. So two units are having 120 score. So one we will go into the experimental design, and another unit will go to the control design. Randomly we can assign that. But in blocked means, you see, letter means that every level we can include that. Like like you see that we want to see the impact of our same intervention that I have discussed, that the impact of the cartoon channel, video games and the other kind of social media. And but you see that here we are not going to take the high intelligent only, so we can take what means on the basis of this achievement we can take as an extraneous variable. So what we can do that this high achievers, average achiever and low achievers, or you can take also the socio-economic status. If you are finding that it is an extraneous variable, you can take that higher, average and low. All the three level will include, but in every group. So what we will do, we will administer our extraneous variable testing, and on the basis of that we categorize that our complete sample, and then randomly we will assign from each group. Means three are there, three, and if two groups are there, then two groups. Like if we are taking that the motivated and demotivated and motivation as an extraneous variable, then we can take that in both the groups. So in every group we will assign the equal number of each category of the extraneous variable, and we will go then treatment, and after that we can go followed by the this experiment with the testing, and we can compare any group of the testing O1, O2 also, O3 also. And in ANOVA design is giving the to see one way ANOVA, there is a specific F ratio we can collect to see that how much difference is there. So randomize, the next is a randomized factorial design, and it is a very important design. And in this design you see that to study two and more independent variables simultaneously, we should adopt this design. And to see the interaction effect of the independent variables, so the factorial design give us this facility, and we can convert the extraneous variable into the independent design also. Two factorial design means two this independent